Hello. Hello. Y'all can hear me there. Let me see this. Well, I apologize, y'all. I'm still having computer issues, I guess. Oh man. But I think I should be back now. I think my internal mic will just have to work with that for this evening on here. But man, I appreciate y'all's patience and hope you're having a wonderful evening. Or if you're watching this on replay, I hope you're having a wonderful morning, day on whatever part of the world you're at. Thank you, Trey, for the heads up. Man, still got some more computer issues to work through. I guess that software update did not fix everything, but heck, I will figure it out as time goes on. But today, during what is really the low point of news in college football, NFL landscape, we have some preseason all conference recognition for a handful of buffs. And this was awesome to see, especially because basically this whole team, except for a few people, did not play within the conference last year. So this is great to see. So we've had some different publications come out or groups put out their all conference. And I'm just going to read through here our players that got recognized. And of course, we can address Shedeur Sanders coming up here after that. So first off, well, I guess I'll list the different publications, media groups that put these out. We have Athlon Sports, the Pac-12, Pro Football Focus, as well as Phil Steele. So starting, we have wide receiver Jimmy Horn. So we have him as first team kick returner from Athlon, second team kick returner from Phil Steele, fourth team wide receiver from both Athlon and Phil Steele, and then honorable mention from the Pac-12 media group for return. And man, I love to see this, especially because, Jimmy Horn and Xavier Weaver, they both performed very well last year, even with kind of not ideal quarterback play there at USF. And so they didn't put up these huge jaw-dropping numbers or anything like that. But again, you turn on the tape, you can see from both Xavier Weaver and Jimmy Horn that these are big-time playmakers. And I like to see that there are people that are paying attention. They're not just looking at Jimmy Horn's stats and saying, hey, man, like, we're just going to leave him off this list, because I would say that he is one of the most talented weapons in all of the conference, because not only can he do great things at the wide receiver position, but we've seen him at USF return, take some to the house. I like to see that he's getting mentioned there as a kick returner as well. And like, for Jimmy's sake, we'll see him have that opportunity to prove himself, both the wide receiver group and on special teams. So that's awesome. Now, Travis Hunter, first team defensive back for Athlon, Pro Football Focus, and the Pac-12 media group, and then all-purpose first team for both Athlon and Pac-12. Second team quarterback on Phil Steele, and then honorable mention wide receiver for the Pac-12 media group. So, I love to see Travis Hunter getting this sort of recognition. I need to go ahead and look at Phil Steele and see, like, who the heck is above Travis Hunter there? Are these official mentions? Yes. You can Google these. I have Athlon's and the Pac-12 media groups, their full preseason all conference list put together. I did not bring up Phil Steele's or Pro Football Focus, but we can dive into those here in a bit. It's a good question, Trey. But man, I love to see Travis Hunter, again, mention number one, first team defensive back. These are people that know what it takes to be successful. He passes the eye test, even if he wasn't on the field a ton last year due to injury. Travis Hunter, he's going to be great. Now, some other interesting players that got mentioned here. Mark Bassett got mentioned from some of these different publications as a punter, third and fourth team. Love to see, I believe he's from Australia, so we love to see international buff getting some love, as well as a holdover buff, Trevor Woods, third team safety, Pro Football Focus, fourth team safety from Athlon, especially in such a competitive safety group. I love to see that from for Trevor Woods. Then some other transfers coming in here. We have Levante Bentley, third team linebacker, Phil Steele. We got Jack Bailey, some of y'all who think will be the starting right guard week 1 against TCU, third team from Phil Steele. This one I thought was really great, especially having not played last year, and that is Alton McCaskill, third team from Athlon for the conference. And I mean, this is a big deal. This speaks to how, just how impressive his freshman year was in the AAC over at Houston, being the freshman offensive player of the year. I love to see that he's already being mentioned as the third best running back in the conference. And then to round out the list, we got 2 edge rushers. We got Derek McClendon, mentioned on the fourth team for the defensive line for Athlon, as well as paired with Savell Smalls, which I thought that was a very interesting mention as well, because again, I think a lot of us really like what Savell Smalls brings to the table. I think athletically, we think that, he's a beast. And again, you turn on his senior season tape, there is not, many people that move like he does, but the production just hasn't been there from Washington. And I think that, okay, you could just overlook somebody being mentioned as fourth team defensive line all conference, whatever. Now they're like, this is a big deal. There's only a handful of guys in the conference that are mentioned that make this list. And with his lack of production, I think this speaks in a positive way to how they view CU's coaching, what they're building, and what they're expecting with guys like Savell Smalls to come in here and really revitalize their careers, get back to where they feel like they always should have been. So, man, I think that this is great. I love to see this as a Buffs fan too, because we haven't had many of our players make these kinds of lists before the season started in the last handful of years. I think, man, with just offense, I'm trying to think. In the COVID year, of course, we had, why am I blanking on his name? Jarek Broussard, who was an all-conference running back, offensive player of the year during COVID. Or, we've had Lavisca Chenault, who was a wide receiver who could also do like wildcat quarterback duties, and we could run the ball with him in the red zone as well, and always seemed to make those big clutch catches when we needed him to make them. He was such a clutch player for us. We haven't had a lot of those players, so seeing this kind of recognition is it's great. And I would expect that when the year finishes, we're going to have more Buffs on this list as time moves on. Which brings me to probably the elephant in the room. Some that I've seen on Twitter a little bit is just, people upset that Shedeur Sanders isn't on these lists. What's up with that? Why isn't Shedeur Sanders on this list? And man, he put up just a ton of numbers at Jackson State. You know how it is. He, what was it? Throughout his first couple years, he's thrown for 6,000 yards and 70 TDs or something just insane like that. He was the HBCU player of the year this past year. And I would think in really any other year within the Pac-12, I think him coming in here, he definitely deserves to be in one of those top 1, 2, or 3 spots, depending on what publication you're looking at on where he should enter preseason all-conference honors at. But this is a weird time for the Pac-12 in a good way, if you're looking at it from a holistic perspective, is that we have some fantastic quarterbacks that are returning from this past year. And I think it is it's hard to not give them what I feel like they earned in the Pac-12 last year. Of course, you have Caleb Williams, Heisman winner, 4,500 yards, 42 TDs, only 5 interceptions. I mean, that is just insane numbers. Then we go to Michael Penix Jr., who's been second on a lot of these lists, 4,600 yards thrown, 31 TDs, and 8 interceptions. I mean, you don't get better quarterback play at the college level than those two, than what they did last year, Caleb Williams and Michael Penix Jr. And then you want to look at a guy who has revitalized his career, and this is kind of the range in which I'm hoping that Sheduer can get to this year, his first year here in the Pac-12. Bo Nix threw for just a smidge under 3,600 yards, 29 TDs, and 7 interceptions. I think if everything goes somewhat according to plan, we will see Sheduer get past these numbers. But I think it's a good baseline to measure kind of where the quarterback play is at the top end of this conference and, where Sheduer needs to be. And then lastly, kind of an honorable mention. I wasn't sure if Cam Rising was put on 14 list. I would assume so if Sheduer wasn't on it right now. But Cam Rising, he's been around Utah for a while, coming off back-to-back conference titles. Okay, I mean, he is entering like his age 45 season. But, I mean, he's a very solid quarterback that had a very good year last year as well. 3,000 yards, 26 TDs, 8 interceptions. You can't get much more consistent and solid than that, from a college quarterback play baseline. Again, when you eclipse that, you get guys that have real NFL potential in Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, and Michael Penix Jr. Now, do I think that Sheduer can get himself on some of these lists this year if everything goes according to plan? Absolutely. Like I have said throughout this whole offseason, I think that he can break pretty much every single season CU passing record. So that's like 3,200 yards thrown. Is it like 28 TDs? Trying to think, and then the all-purpose touchdowns, I think it's like the same. So it's something like that. I should look it up to give you guys real numbers or like the most specific numbers, but I do think that Shedeur Sanders can definitely find himself on some of these all-conference honors lists as the year goes on, and I hope that he uses this as motivation. Did I just lay out the argument, I guess, for why he was left off? Sure, but should he take this personally? Sure. Should he see this as a slight compared to the numbers that he's put up at Jackson State coming in here? Yeah, I think so. I mean, if he were to be listed right now as that third conference quarterback or third all-conference quarterback right now behind Penix Jr. and Caleb Williams, I mean, I wouldn't have an issue with it, of course, but I can see like why these publications have left him off there. But I think that we'll see him eclipse national expectations. Again, if you follow this channel, if you follow a lot of CU, what's been going on, a lot of us have higher expectations than the greater national media or just general college football fans. And I think that Bo Nix level, 3,600 yards, 30 to 35 touchdowns, keeping those picks under 10, that's going to give the Buffs a lot of wins, and it's going to get him all conference honors and recognition. Let's see. Mike, thanks for tuning in. I think you're a Nebraska fan, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm wrong. Uncle Lou said Nebraska's not able to recruit only the Midwest. 4-star coming out of Hawaii. I'm starting to get a little nervous. To be honest, man, I do not know what you mean by that. I don't follow the Nebraska Cornhuskers program too closely, but from what I do know, they recruit at the national level pretty, especially for the lack of wins that they've had as a program. And I think Matt Rule's doing a pretty good job right now. I would not be nervous if I were you. I think Matt Rule is probably the best coach that y'all could have had, given how Scott Frost and everything turned out. So I wouldn't get too nervous. But if they have a 4-star coming out here from Hawaii, I mean that's awesome. Hawaii has put out some really darn good college and NFL football players. Um, there's nothing to get nervous about if you're getting those kind of guys nationally. I do think your bread and butter is staying within the Midwest, just like other schools usually have the most success recruiting in their backyards where they're at regionally. CU and I guess Nebraska in some ways, they do have to take slightly a different approach to that because Nebraska and Colorado aren't exactly, college football farm systems, when you're looking at the high school level. But I wouldn't be too nervous. And especially being in the Big Ten and with a brand as big as Nebraska and with the NIL collectives that they have, they shouldn't, you guys shouldn't be too nervous now that Matt Rule's in town. I think it's going to be a really fun race and competition, so to speak, to kind of see how both of these rebuilds between CU and Nebraska go along. Did Sanders ever get an invite to QB Elite 11? I believe he did. But I'll be honest, right now, I'm like 70% sure of that. So I could be wrong. Y'all keep me, yeah, y'all keep me honest. But yeah, I did know that you were a Nebraska fan. I do recognize you from the comments. Even if I don't respond to everything, I pretty much read every comment. So I recognize a lot of y'all. Al Love, what's up, man? It's good to see you. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I don't mind talking a little Nebraska Cornhuskers here, but man, I'll say this, with some of the guys that y'all have had on visits, and it just seems from what I see on Twitter, guys that are taking official visits to Nebraska, man, I think your program's in a lot better of a space than it has been in many years. And if something goes wrong with Matt Rule, I think there's been enough that it's happened with successful football coaches coming in there to Nebraska that something else has to change. Something else is going on. Just like what we've had here at CU, where, yes, we can blame the coaching, the lack of recruiting over the last 15 years, the last 20 years for why we are. But there were other administrative and program issues that went beyond the head coach that contributed to a culture that wasn't taking winning seriously. So I hope for Nebraska's sakes, fans, that Matt Rule is able to change the tide with this. I think if for some reason he isn't, it's not his fault. I mean, the guy's proven, right? Our rules are meant to be broken. Man, that's got to be our tagline for September 9th. Mike, you got to let me know. Did you splurge for some of the tickets to come out here to Boulder for Coach Prime's home opener against Nebraska? I hope you did. Yeah, it's going to be a really fun game. And again, I think that there's a world in which I could really see CU getting off to a really hot start, 3-0, and all that. But just like Bill Carroll, NFL draft scout, who was on my show maybe about a month ago, he's not expecting the CU team to look very smoothly those first weeks, and he wouldn't be surprised if we lose those first two against TCU and Nebraska, and we'll just have to see. But man, we got to keep the red out of Folsom. You are right, Sparky Buff. In 2019, and Mike, if you were there for that game, you got to let me know. But man, how embarrassing was that seeing so many Cornhusker fans? Honestly, it was probably the ratio was probably about 60-40 Cornhuskers fans, but man, like you're walking around Boulder before and after, like everybody's wearing red. It was just embarrassing. Now we finally, as Buffs Nation, we have something to believe in. We have something to really get our energy behind. We have really something to spend our extra money on in excitement. And I really hope it's not like that. But uh, it's kind of one of those things where like it's an advantage. Like we love being here in Boulder. It's one of the most beautiful places to come and watch a college football game. On the flip side, because Nebraska, it's so desolate and not fun to live in, to be honest. You just gotta, to watch the Cornhuskers play in a much more vibrant, enjoyful, if that's a word, setting. Boulder's only a few hours away, right? So it makes sense why they're able to pack the house. I mean, it makes sense if you're coming from Nebraska, spend a little weekend vacation out in the mountains, get away for a little bit. You don't got to go too far away, and you can watch your team play. But man, hopefully that ticket price spike is able to solve a lot of that issue. But anybody who's following this Buffs team for the first time this year, I think y'all are underrating Nebraska Cornhuskers fans and how crazy and passionate they are. They have nothing else going on in Nebraska but that program, and so they're going to show out even in the tough years. And like I've seen comments on here saying, "No, y'all don't got to worry about Cornhusker fans. Don't even worry about it." No. As a Buffs fan, as someone who was there in 2019, I just can't do it. But hopefully we show out, Buffs Nation, we spend the right amount of money. And like at the end of the day, we love it when opposing fans come and spend money with us. However, we're talking about a brand thing now. Like we can't have Coach Prime out there in a sea of red for his first home football game, right? I mean, that's just bad. That's just bad PR, man. Imagine all the Twitters going crazy. We got to keep it out of Folsom. So yeah, Buffs fans, be buying those tickets. I'm hoping to go to those games, to be there for that game, and Lord willing, we'll see it all work out. Man, I love this interaction between Buffs fans and Cornhuskers fans. Like, we haven't had much of this on my channel yet. We're going to get more of that. Both programs need a good few years, man, and absolutely. And when we got these college football brands successful, overall, man, the TV ratings go up and everybody eats. Like, college football is better off when you do have some Midwestern powers out there playing well. Some other programs that I feel like are kind of down on their luck right now, where college football is better, where they're at their best. University of Miami. Let's talk about them. And we've been in competition for a lot of those Florida recruits out there, man. Like the University of Miami, when they're on, I love watching them. Like when they got a good team, it's been a long time. They're entertaining as hell. Like, I guess like when I grew up watching college football, Miami was that team. And college football is better off when they're one of the top programs. I mean, I'm hoping that Mario Cristobal can really get that program back up to the standard that it used to be. But man, it just always seems like there's some other things going on with Miami, maybe outside of just the coaching hire. I think with Cristobal, he's a solid coach, and hopefully they can, build the right culture. I don't think that this has gone as smoothly as maybe some Hurricanes fans has hoped, just like my outside view of it. But man, like if we have Nebraska successful, if we have Colorado, of course, successful, that sort of rivalry is something that's going to make college football better. Now, I will say, Mike, y'all got to put pressure on your administration to make sure that this out-of-conference matchup happens every year. Y'all got to put pressure on your program, because I've done it here, and I'm hoping that Buffs Nation, we can continue to keep this going because, granted, I think everybody had the right reasons for leaving the Big 12 13 years ago, right? Sadly, Nebraska got the right invite to the Big Ten rather than CU got the wrong invite to the Pac-12, and we see how that's gone. But it's a real shame that we don't play in the same conference anymore. But moving forward, this rivalry needs to be made a yearly priority. And I think, like, man, like some of the things that just annoy me with college football is how you have to schedule all these rivalries out years and years, or all these non-conference matchups out years and years. Really how it should be done is based on this past year, what's going on, the changes that are going on. That's when they should schedule the non-conference games. Just get those things scheduled out in like February, put the tickets on sale in like April for it, or in May. And you're always going to have the best out of conference matchups for college football if you just did it on a yearly basis. But that's not the way it is. We need to schedule these things sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years out. And the only way that happens is if we continue to pressure our programs to do it. Yeah, man. Like, it's fun talking smack with Nebraska fans. I enjoy all the back and forth. I love it when they say that, they're not or CU isn't a real rival of theirs. But hey, it's clear that Matt Rule thinks that to some extent. And, I just find the whole thing entertaining. But yeah, like a lot of people haven't, especially kids, now, or if you're in college right now, you didn't grow up seeing Nebraska compete for national championships. You haven't seen their fan base put on a national pedestal to where it really shows out, to where it shows like how strong they really are. Because even in these down years, and Nebraska hasn't been much better than CU over the last 15 years or so. I mean, let's be honest. But I had friends that went to school, that went to college there, and that stadium was still packed no matter what. And you got to give them props for that. Mike says, I just pray Nebraska gets the upset over Minnesota and get beat by Colorado just because of divisions. Oh, yeah. Well, man, I always forget how this is going to go in the Big 12 or Big 10 now, especially with expansion coming. I guess that's more for 24. But Mike, if you know like your division rivals or how that scheduling is going to work out for the Big 10, let me know. But man, I would love it if, the Big 10, I know that Colorado doesn't have the TV viewing data over the last 10 years or anything like that to justify being added to the Big 10. If you're looking at Colorado through the same criteria that they've always looked at for conference expansion. But things are different now with Prime, and it's a worldwide fan base as long as he's here. I think if the Big 10 were to bring in Colorado at some point, that gives us the revenue to continue to pay Prime to keep him here at CU, and that would mean to keep all that viewership at Colorado and within the Big 10. You just have to look at it from a different criteria. Coach Prime is definitely different than anybody coming in here that would normally rebuild a program like this, and that needs to be accounted for. But I do think, something's got to give, man, with this Pac-12 media stuff that has never happened. Hopefully, we'll have an update on that this week. But we've been waiting on this deal for a year and a half, and you can't just make excuses for why nothing has happened. Usually, what is it? Occam's razor. Usually the simplest answer is usually the one that's correct. Yeah, I think that's it. There isn't a deal right now because there's no good deal. I think that's what it is, man. We've waited long enough. And I think that the Big 12, if we can't somehow perform some other miracle and sneak our way into the SEC or the Big 10, which, is a very slim, percentage right now doing that after this year. I think we just got to go to the Big 12, hopefully perform there well there. And then maybe sometime in the 2030s, we can jump ship to one of those big 2 conferences. We'll see. Yeah, man. Well, I mean, 6 wins, man. Y'all had what, 4 or 5 last year? Granted, a new quarterback, which we'll see how Jeff Sims is. I'm not super high on him. I know he was rated as a 4-star transfer, and I know he's more of uh, a running quarterback coming over from Georgia Tech. But I think a lot of that's going to have to do with Jeff Sims. Just like really any quarterback or any team, their success is pretty much predicated on that position. How good are you at the quarterback position? The good news for Nebraska is that they have a coach that has done very well with average quarterback play. Ooh, got to go. Life in football, interviewing Gavin Cold, our possible QB2. I'm going to have to check that out, and I've actually hit my deadline. I got to run here. But Mike, Al Love, let's see, Sparky, Trey, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the other people that have been watching today. I will be back throughout the week as usual with some more Buffs content. So thank you for tuning in. And as always, go Buffs.